I do think it's important you go and look for what music is out.
Yeah.
Because again, it's BS if you're saying there's no new good music, because there's some fantastic new artists right now.
One of my favorite things is finding a band I've never heard of.
Yep.
Somebody comes into the shop and they're like, this album that just came out is amazing.
Like,
I'll put it on and suddenly I'm like, I got to listen to it twice in a row.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you ever do this, but I've had songs where I will go like 10 times in a row. Like you listen to it and it just like
On
stirs
repeat.
something.
Yep. Exactly.
And you hit it again. You're like, go back.
No, I'm very obsessive like that, where I will get onto a song or generally after that a band because I like the sound. And for me, if I hear a great song, okay, that's one thing. But the song has to be like a representation of what they are and their sound, et cetera, because if I go to their album and I find, oh, well, there's only 2 songs in here that sound like this single that they put out.
Yeah.
And the rest of the stuff, I'm not keen on that.
Yeah.
I'll drop them quick. But if I like them, boom, I'm on that. And then I put that whole album on repeat.
Yeah.
And I get to where I really like the other songs on the album that weren't the single.
And you even then start having artists that sound similar that you're like, because I like this, now I'm starting
This sounds
to
like so-and-so. Yeah, I want to listen to them.
Which I feel like is the perfect segue to the start of our podcast, you guys. It's Daybreak After Dark. Paul has been gracious enough to come on the show. We're excited to talk 80s.
Yep.
And with a little bit more of an emphasis on that new wave movement that came out.
New wave, a little bit of goth.
Yeah. Maybe a hint.
Favorite band, Bauhaus.
Which I'm excited because I didn't listen to Bauhaus as much.
Okay.
And I gave it a little bit of a dive.
Okay.
I was like, why have I not listened to them?
Right.
Now? But I feel like we're going to save them for just a minute.
Sounds good.
But to get started, you guys, sometimes you have to make a confession. And I want to do this on air to you guys right now. I'm a little bit weaker in my 80s knowledge. And if you've watched the record auction, you have seen Brooke give me a hard time and time again. And I think part of what it was, because we've discussed this, the 80s really tied in so much with popular culture.
Okay.
You had movies that came out that propelled a band to stardom.
Yep.
They had a song in there where people forever are like, I remember that from that song.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think because growing up, we didn't watch a lot of movies. That was during the 80s when it would have been that time where I would have like seen more.
Yeah.
And so I realized that may have been a problem with my education of 80s music.
Okay.
And then you had mentioned high school, that being such a pivotal time in gaining knowledge.
Yeah.
So me, it was 90s. So hitting into that like grunge movement, alternative at the later end.
Yep.
And so for me, that was kind of the focus in high school of like that, those 90s bands were influencing me.
Right.
And popular culture.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm so excited to talk to you today. So we got the confession out of the way. Maybe 80s is a little bit weaker for me. Down below in the comments, you guys, as you're listening to this, kind of what we wanted to do was talk about some of your favorite 80s bands, especially new wave bands.
Right.
And that term, I think, will automatically get people in the comments being like, what is new wave?
What is it? Yeah.
So you, what is new wave to you when you talk about bands from that movement?
So I know like you can deep dive into it on the internet where there was a separation of all kinds of genres in the late 70s. I feel like new wave was the big introduction of synthesizers as the main instrument. The 808 drums, drum kit. I think
synthesizers,
that kind of
keyboard even.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that kind of music to me represents, you know, there's synth pop and there's this and that, but new wave to me is that really heavy synthesizer and the 808 drum kits, etc. Yeah.
So maybe we even need to go back a little bit pre-80s to really start at the right place. So from my understanding, and obviously jump in here too on this, but really for me going back, I feel like one of those bands was Roxy Music.
Yes.
Who's kind of started down a road that got other bands thinking differently.
Yeah.
Because you had that post-punk kind of movement at the time.
Yep.
And for me, Roxy Music really was that crucial moment, and especially one artist, Brian Eno.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like Brian Eno kind of started shaping that road towards.
And, even artists like David Bowie,
Yeah.
the late 70s is when a lot of things were, you're either disco or hard rock. And that's pretty much the two big radio plays.
Yeah.
But then there was the more experimental stuff coming out. And David Bowie,
Which was
he had
huge.
some very experimental stuff. And I think he started kind of moving that, that pendulum as well.
One of the things I noticed as I was kind of trying to do a little research too is you had back in the day, you had that first British invasion, right?
Yep.
You had Rolling Stones, Beatles,
Yep.
the Kinks even coming out of Great Britain. I almost feel like there's a second British invasion.
Definitely.
And you probably will agree, but artists like Blondie, Talking Heads, David Bowie, coming from England, they had this thing which I felt was fascinating. It was called Top of the Pops.
Right.
So it was kind of similar to our MTV.
Exactly.
So they had this video broadcast where bands would actually lip sync.
Yep.
And that was their whole thing.
Yeah.
Like you did not sing. It was like the studio album, but you would come on and lip sync.
Right.
And so I feel like some of those bands were propelled with that. And Blondie, Talking Heads, David Bowie really got an accelerated boost from that.
I think that first British invasion helped that second British invasion because people here were more likely to go, oh, okay, there's some cool stuff coming out of Britain before. Let's see what this is about. So I do think it really helped having that first invasion kind of paved the way for the second invasion. And I think the New York club scene was really important.
Yeah.
What is that?
The CBGB?
Thank you, CBGB. Places like that were bringing in these artists that weren't exactly mainstream. Really helped that invasion as well.
And New York, I think, was pretty pivotal. One thing I found, so you have New Wave. The thing that I found that was fascinating, there was one movement called No Wave. Have you heard this term before?
I have heard the term before, yeah.
So Brian Eno was kind of pivotal in that. And he produced an album that kind of captured, it was a compilation of some of the New York bands in those early days. And so it was called the No Wave Movement. And it was very short-lived. There were just kind of a few bands. We won't kind of dive into that, but if for fun, go out and look up No Wave, which was kind of this whole separate thing in New York that was happening.
Right.
But getting into Brian Eno, because I think he's pretty pivotal.
Okay.
So obviously doing Roxy Music, Brian Ferry with him.
Yes.
There was some drama, some splits happened.
Right. Like all bands.
As happens. But then Brian Eno he developed into more than just a musician. It was that producer. He actually helped a lot of other great bands form.
Right.
And so we talked about what are some of those bands for you that were so influential.
Right.
Let's talk Devo. Because I feel like at first Devo was definitely one of those first bands. And Brian Eno was pivotal in that.
And Devo was very, again, experimental, did a lot of covers, but did covers in a way that nobody had ever heard before and kind of gave that sound. And so then others following said, oh, it's okay to go down that road and give us this kind of sound. People are going to accept that. So I think they were important. Yeah.
Very. And with the post-punk movement, that was kind of the anti-establishment.
Right.
Their music was all about not being mainstream, not being that popular music.
Exactly.
And I feel like where it started to deviate was the new wave. They wanted to be a little bit more mainstream. They wanted their music to be heard. They wanted it played on MTV.
Right. And, it's interesting. You and I were talking in the store the other day about some of the bands I really follow to this date. Bands like Depeche Mode.
Mm-hmm.
If you listen to their first couple, 3 albums, very experimental, very, I would say more towards like the rebellious.
Yeah.
And then you could tell that a switch went off somewhere. And I'm not sure where it came from, but they all of a sudden started to try to do the radio hits.
Yeah.
And honestly, this is kind of different. I feel most bands, their first couple, 3 albums are their best.
Yeah.
But I believe Depeche Mode got better with time.
Yeah.
And their latest album a couple years ago, I mean, fantastic.
Yeah.
Just so, out of this world.
With Depeche Mode, so Vince Clarke played a pivotal role in those first few albums, right?
Uh-huh.
And then really for me, those first few had a little bit more industrial, gothic.
Yeah.
It had that darker kind of tone to it at first.
A little bit darker and a little bit more like the more punk type sound.
Yeah, definitely more punk influence.
Yes.
Do we feel like Vince Clarke leaving
probably
maybe influenced
and I
the
think,
change of sound?
David Gauham kind of taking the reins a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
He started getting a little stardom. and people kind of said, this guy is an entertainer. Wow, this guy is just something else. And I think he really started to take the reins a little bit. And I don't know if you've listened to a lot of Depeche Mode, but his voice is more Broadway almost. I mean, he can project, he's the showman. And I think their music started to follow that a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that's when they really became popular in the United States on radio.
So for you, later albums, Depeche Mode maybe carries more weight for you when with albums you love?
Oh, yeah. Their last one, Moriarty, I can't remember the whole title to it, but that album almost stop to finish is just amazing. Yeah.
And we always, as music enthusiasts, talk about those perfect albums. That start to finish, you put it on, and it's just this masterpiece that you have to take as a whole.
Right.
I feel like Depeche Mode had a few of those that were...
A couple, yeah. I do think that one mistake they made along the road was they did tend to push songs from one album to the next. So they would have in mind, oh, this is kind of the album we're trying to produce. But then they would add a song from the last album. I think they did a little too much of that, making it not the perfect album. But in general, I think they did a really nice job of keeping a theme. So the best concert I ever went to, Black Celebration Tour, it was at what they call the Canyons now. It was Park West back then. Amazing concert. It was New Order and / Joy Division as one of the openers. A Book of Love was there, and Chris Isaak. Chris Isaak was huge at that moment with Wicked Games. But that Black Celebration Tour, it was like a theater production from start to finish. And him being the showman he was, oh my God, it was an amazing, amazing concert.
How many, so let's talk about, because we kind of hinted at this in the store. If you took your top 5 from that era, like New Wave, how would you rank it?
So I would probably put In Excess in the top 5. Another great concert. I saw them just before he passed. Again, showman. Maybe that's the thing with me and New Wave is some of that showmanship. I think New Order / Joy Division, just fantastic songs top to bottom.
One of my favorite quotes, and it's interesting you say that, is I kept reading about New Wave and trying to get people to be like, what is it? Like, capture it for me. And the best quote I heard is, you don't just listen to New Wave, you see it. And that is like performance-wise, how they dress. Like it was more than just
the whole
listening.
Thing.
Would you agree with that?
No, I totally agree. And so I grew up in the 80s. I was born in 1970. So I was a teenager going through my formative years in the 80s. Back then, we had a number of clubs in Salt Lake City that were underage clubs. So there was no alcohol, although alcohol did find its way into the clubs. As happens. But man, that was an amazing place to grow up as a teenager and being into certain music. And those places were filled with that new wave, goth music, dance versions of it. I mean, it was a whole scene. And I was a very goth kid. I did the whole black. I had strange hair. I wore barbed wire. And I was a skater kid at the same time. I liked some of the punk music, Dead Kennedys, etc. So I do agree with you that it was very much a movement, was not just about the music. It was about like the whole lifestyle.
And The Cure for me.
Yes, The Cure definitely is in my top 5.
Do you feel like they influence that look too? Because I feel like...
Oh, definitely.
Like that was kind of the wild hair,
I would say them and Flock of Seagulls. Flock of Seagulls. I mean, you want to talk about hair. Flock of Seagulls.
This may be, obviously fact check me out there in internet land, but wasn't he a hairdresser too?
It could have been.
I almost remember hearing something, and that kind of played into their like fun hairstyles
and the eyeshadow, the eyeliner. I remember, being beat up more than once in high school for that kind of stuff. Because back then it was just unheard of that guys would be doing something like that. But it was definitely part of that whole new wave goth type music.
So for you, the music and the culture were kind of intertwined with 100%. What you were going through.
And I was definitely country music. I'm sorry, all you country fans out there, but
Yeah.
I grew up with country in the house, and my parents really pushed it, and I got to oversaturation point, and
Yeah.
so to this day, I cannot stand most country music,
Yeah.
which is unusual for me because I love almost all kinds of music.
Yeah.
But also the glam rock thing that was going on at the same time, the Scorpions, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Oh Lord, there were so many kids in my school that just loved that stuff, and it was oversaturated, and I wanted something different than what everybody else was doing.
Yeah, because that getting into like the late 80s with just like the hair metal and the like a very different. I feel like these were two different sides of the coin with that.
100%. Yeah.
And I feel that too, because like country for me was probably something I didn't listen to as much.
Right.
But for me, it was a cultural thing.
Okay.
So I kind of lived all over in Utah.
Okay.
But I was down in Springville. And so Springville and then Spanish Fork. Spanish Fork was known for like the country music.
Right.
The Cowboys were kind of
back then it was the edge of the world.
Yeah. Who knew what was past Spanish Fork? But for me, I wanted to identify a certain way.
Okay.
And so for me, it was, I just didn't want to be part of that culture, which was just a decision in high school that you make, right?
Right.
And so for me, the type of music I listened to was heavily influenced by that thought of
exactly
who do I identify with and who do I want to be?
And I'm guessing, I don't know because I don't have kids, but I'm guessing today it's the same thing. There's cliques. My high school had 8-10 different cliques. The Cowboys were one of them. I grew up in Woods Cross Bountiful area, and there was a big Cowboy contingent there. So a lot of those things played into the fact that I definitely wanted to be counterculture. I didn't want to be part of the mainstream. So yeah, I do think that probably if you watch young people, the same thing's still happening where certain kinds of music is going to kind of affect what clique they end up in and who their friends are.
That's true. If you're a Swiftie, you have a certain group you identify with.
Yes.
Or if you're
the rap fan, you're going to have a certain group.
Exactly.
But I think it's very much, music is very cultural in and of itself. And then you tie that into the kids growing up and trying to find who they are. I think it's very influential.
Yeah. Agreed. With the 80s too, I feel like music was evolving so rapidly too.
Mm-hmm.
You had a lot of different things overlapping. And that's what makes it so fascinating, some of these like movements that came out of it.
Well, and you also had the things that you didn't have in the past was MTV. MTV, all of the shows that kind of followed it, where they're showing videos. I remember there was a local station that would have an hour or two program similar to MTV where they would show videos. And that was a huge thing. I mean, didn't see that in the 60s and 70s with music. People were seeing that live, but it did bring that kind of culture into the house for a lot of people.
Exactly. And I feel like with New Wave, the first song ever played on MTV, obviously
Video killed the radio star, the Buggles.
Yeah.
Yes.
And which was interesting that it was actually a New Wave song that was first played on MTV.
Yep.
And really that video component changed everything.
Yes.
Like some of those music videos you look back on and like the visual components were really what made some of those songs pop.
Yeah. And, MTV was fairly kind to New Wave. I think they did help propel a lot of careers, The Cure being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
The Cure had some amazing videos that was played on MTV, and I think that did help with their popularity. Depeche Mode, Duran Duran, they were huge. I remember them. A lot of people talking about, oh, did you see the video for this song or that song? They were very big.
Yeah.
So
agreed. With going into our top 5, because we kind of hinted, let's get a straight through run and then we'll kind of talk about some.
Okay.
And I'm putting you on the spot here.
Yeah.
So we had
In Excess at 5, I would say.
Okay.
And then Joy Division / New Order at 4.
Okay.
Great bands in live performance. I think that they were the epitome of new wave. That sound, that real synthy sound, and a singer that wasn't necessarily a singer. That Joy Division. If you listen to the lyrics, very deep lyrics, not great performance lyrics, if you will, and very much talkative about things. But people loved it. I loved it.
Kind of two different bands too. I know
exactly
they get lumped together.
Well, because they were the same band except for the lead singer.
Yeah.
Really, when you look at it, everybody came over. But They did change quite a bit with the new singer. But I do feel that they're very much the same entity.
So you would almost lump them together.
I always lump them together. Yeah. If you're talking about top 5, those two are one entity.
So they're just slot number 4.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's put The Cure in there.
Okay. So maybe 3, or we kind of
I'm going to say
around?
3.
Okay.
I'm going to say 3. Very big into The Cure when I was a kid. Went to a number of their concerts. Went with my wife, actually. My wife's not a real big music person, but she loved The Cure, and so got her to a concert at the old Salt Palace. And
cool.
It was a good time. And not quite the performer. The reason he's at number 3, The Cure's at number 3, is I don't think Robert Smith is the best performer per se. Very much what you see in videos is what you get on the stage, is very much, just looking around and strumming the guitar, and a great musician, all that, but just not the performer you would like, maybe.
So in your criteria, so not only do you have lyrical content, you have the music, you have performative, like their style. Yeah. So do you feel like those 3 categories are kind of the main influencers of what
and you can talk about bands and, oh, this is a great band, that's a great band. But there's great bands, and then there's great performance bands. Do you remember XTC?
Yes.
So XTC, fantastic, right? Did they ever do a concert? I don't remember them ever doing a concert.
And that performance side just wasn't.
No, there was nothing there. And I believe, if I remember correctly, I saw a documentary about them. And I believe he alluded to the fact that he knew he wasn't a performer, and he really didn't want anything to do with that. And I think that's why they stayed away from it.
And I've thought about this with bands often too, is you have like that creative type who like songwriter, lyricist, like musician.
Right.
And it's always interesting to me because I feel like sometimes that quiet introvert maybe doesn't get a fair shake in the music industry.
No, definitely. No, I totally agree. And some of the best musicians out there are not ever seen in concert. They're behind the scenes. Sia. So Sia was.
I don't think I've listened much. Tell me.
So Sia very much was introverted. That's why she wore the wigs and such that go. She just really didn't want people to see who she was, and she kind of wanted to block herself from the crowd. But the amount of songs that she wrote, I mean, amazing. And then when somebody pushed her and said, "You really need to come out and do this," look at what she did. I mean, it's amazing. So I think you're right that a lot of these really great artists are not necessarily performers. Maybe some of them can be if they get pushed like Sia, but I think a lot of them just don't have it.
And this came up in conversation because I'm more of the extrovert, like, especially in my relationship with Brooke and I.
Right.
Like, I love attention. I don't know if you've gathered this from our live auction, but the thought of like people even recognizing me, or like, I almost love the thought of like building this giant community, and knowing people and talking to people. And for me, I thrive off of that.
Right.
Which as a performer, you could see how that would play into.
Right. Yeah.
But then you have the other side where it's like, what if you really makes you uncomfortable, people recognizing you, or you don't want that limelight?
You know, it's funny you say that, because if I went back to my childhood, up until the age of 15, I was the introvert like crazy. Like, and I'm still introvert, extrovert. Yeah. So in a lot of situations, I'm still the introvert, but then you get me in certain situations, watch out. Yeah. Here I come.
What would those situations for you be? Like because I know I'm thinking of one thing in my head.
Okay.
Where I'm like, what is it for you that you're like, if I'm in this setting, I kind of come out of my shell?
I pretty much, if I feel comfortable with the subject, with the situation, what's happening, look out. I was in sales my entire life, and sales, you cannot be an introvert. No. I should go back to age 15. Why did it change at age 15? I got a job at Lagoon.
Oh, okay.
All my friends got me into this. I already had a job. I started working when I was 12 years old. Yeah. Worked for my aunt and uncle. They owned a jet charter service, and I used to do work at the airport for them. Okay. So I had a good job already at age 15. Yeah. But that summer, my friend said, "We're going to apply at Lagoon. It's going to be a heck of a time. You need to come with it." I'm like, what the hell? I'll just go do this, right?
But initially, the thought of working in a public setting, maybe not what you
well, and then the way they kind of got me to come and apply with them was, you really don't have to talk to anybody. You're just running the rides. Okay. Well, we get there, we do these interviews. 2 of them got hired as ride operators.
Yeah.
You don't have to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
They were more the extroverts, right?
Yeah.
So myself and my one other friend get hired for games.
Ooh.
So
You're kind of a carnival barker almost.
exactly.
Yeah.
So how do I go from not wanting to talk to anybody, working by myself most of the time, to all of a sudden now I'm in front of thousands and thousands of people a day. And I ended up not only in games, but they saw something in me right away where they wanted to put me on microphone games. So I'm barking to the whole park, just a few
I'm
people.
already envisioning.
So that's what brought me from total introvert to, now if the situation's right, cool, let's do it,
Do you remember a favorite game that you had to run? Like
Whack-A-Mole.
Was that the one?
Whack-A-Mole was right when you come into the entrance.
Yeah.
It was on the right-hand side. It was kind of the direction most people went because Colossus was there. And that was the big new ride.
Yeah.
So
you get more people.
I would get so many people. You sat up high, so you felt like this sense of security. You were a good 6-8 feet above everybody else.
Yeah.
And you could just... The people that run the games, they want you to be the fool. They want you to be.
Are you egging people on too?
Yes.
You're just like,
100%.
You're with your girl. Do you want to look like
exactly? Yes. So that kind of built a little bit of my personality that summer.
Yeah.
And by the way, my friends were right. It was an amazing summer. I was out till 4 a.m. generally every morning. I don't know how we got away with this kind of stuff, child labor, etc. But it was a great summer. Yeah. So after that, I pretty much got into sales from that point forward. And sales is where I made my bread and butter.
That's kind of where you thrived.
Yep. And I could only sell if I believed in the product and I was comfortable with the product.
Yeah.
So it turned out to be really a fascinating turn of events.
Yeah. Sometimes you do in life, you have these retrospective moments. Like
right.
If you didn't have the Lagoon Summer, could have really influenced the direction that life went.
Honestly, I most likely would have ended up in the airplane industry. I was going for my private pilot's license for a while. I actually went to Air Force recruiters. Mm-hmm. I got all of my recommendations from senators, Senator Garn. I had everything I needed. I was approved for the Air Force Academy. I was told in my last interview, now you do understand, Paul, you can't fly fighter jets, right? What? And literally the first time I'd heard this in 6 months of going through this process.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Because of my eyesight. So I had made the cutoff with height just barely.
Yeah.
And I made the cutoff with weight just barely. I didn't weigh enough and I had to actually gain 10 pounds.
Yeah.
So I'd done all the physical stuff, but nobody had said anything about the eyesight. And back then there was no LASIK, anything like that. So it had to be 20/20.
It was a hard cutoff.
Yes. So, they offered me, you cargo planes, etc. Yeah. No thanks. And I stopped flying at that time. It was so devastating as a 17-year-old that wanted to go to the Air Force Academy, wanted to be a fighter pilot, grew up in an airplane family. It was the thing I had to do and just completely turned my life around. So that 15 to 17 really changed my life. And I met my wife when I was 17 too. So
these 2 years were
it was crazy. Yes.
And not only that, but music is probably shaping what's happening.
100%. Yeah.
This is during those times. Where do you feel like your musical taste came from? Was it friends, family? Like, how were you introduced to some of these songs?
So I would say family pushed me away from certain things.
Okay.
So
because you said that
I didn't like the rock and the country music because, family members, cousins, etc. They liked certain things and played it at nauseum. And so I didn't like that. I would say friends started influencing that. And so then, friends had different kinds of perspectives on things. But we all kind of liked things that were on the edge, things that were different, things that were hard to get. I still to this day, I like the things that are, oh my gosh, that album's going to be $300 because nobody has it.
Of course, you're drawn to the most expensive
exactly.
album, which maybe is a part of human nature too. Like we want what we can't have sometimes too.
Yep.
And maybe certain people are more drawn to that style than somebody who maybe wants to fit in. So they go with the pop generic bands.
And another thing I'm just thinking of is in high school, we had the radio station that was in Bountiful. And I'm trying to remember what KXRP. Um, anyway, it was a new wave station.
Oh, so that
Yes, it was
probably
very
influenced.
college radio before college radio got big in the 90s.
Yeah.
But it was very college radio, low budget, but it was right there in Bountiful, and we knew all the DJs, and it was the days when you could call in and actually talk to the DJs and say, "Hey, have you heard this? Have you heard that?" They would play this stuff, and so it was really kind of being on the inside, if you will.
Yeah. You almost need that access to music. Like we talked about in New York, like how they had access to some of these clubs that were playing this underground stuff.
Right.
So I feel like that's part of, in order to have a thriving culture for a genre, you need access to the music.
Well, it's interesting. It used to be called the Palladium. It was a club out in Salt Lake City. I want to say it was in Highland area. Anyway, or not, excuse me, Highland, Midvale, that kind of area. We used to go there for just regular, Friday night dance parties or whatever. But they had some concerts, and somebody invited me to an Aztec Camera Squeeze concert. I'd never heard either of them, but went, and I was like, dang, these guys are fantastic. Again, showman, like fantastic show, and started listening to them shortly after. So I think it's one of those things where, unless it's really out there, you give people an opportunity to kind of go experience something like that. They're kind of gonna glom onto it and say, that's my thing.
And I love those stories of like concert related.
Yes.
You have an opener who's a big name, but then I always love these stories back in the day where it's like, and these guys opened for them.
Yeah.
And at the time they were nobodies.
Right. And now they're the
like,
headliner.
Oh, it was The Cure who were opening for like,
right.
And then you're introduced because of openers.
Yeah.
And I think back on my musical taste, and there's been bands like that they've been the opener for a band. And I ended up liking them maybe even more than like the headliner. And then suddenly they're entering my music lexicon of like, I wouldn't have discovered them. And
well, Book of Love is a perfect example of that. They were with the Depeche Mode concert, and I'd never heard of them before. And so one of my buddies like, oh, I've heard one of their songs. Let's listen to it. And we listened to the album. Oh, they're actually pretty darn good. And went to the concert again. Great showman, and became a band that we listened to quite a bit. Not one of my favorites, but definitely a band we got into.
You might not have discovered otherwise.
Absolutely.
So the other way, and I feel like this so captures the 80s, and tell me if you agree, is the idea of the mixtape.
Yeah,
I feel like for me, looking back, I'd go to a friend's house and they'd be like, I have these songs that I've been listening to. I've burnt them on a CD or I've recorded them on a cassette. And suddenly you're taking that home and you get this like glimpse into their musical, like what they're loving.
Yeah.
And for me, I still remember some of these mixtapes and I can almost hear the songs in order.
Right.
Because I listened to them so much.
Right. And in my day, it was definitely cassettes.
Yeah.
And we would record off the radio a lot of times. And Dr. Demento, I don't know if you ever heard Dr. Demento. It was a program on Sunday nights, and they played some weird stuff. Fish heads. I don't know if you ever heard that. So fish heads, roly-poly fish heads.
I don't remember that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But anyway, they would have some really cutting edge weird stuff that would turn out later on. Oh, this is a huge band now.
Yeah.
So
but at the time it was this.
Weird. And you'd get the cassette recorder and you'd hear that little bit of the DJ just fading out and then hit the song. And
hopefully you catch it. And I do remember the radio record. And sometimes they would get you with the delayed intro. You're like, no, I just messed up my recording.
Stop talking.
Exactly. And I feel like Dr. Demento probably would have played some Rock Lobster.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure Rock Lobster made its
some B-52s thrown on there. A funny thing about that, I've loved the Beatles forever.
Okay.
Like, they really influenced the start of my musical taste.
Okay.
I just felt like they were just so pivotal in how music was shaped.
Okay.
So the story I love is, so John Lennon, obviously things happen, band breaks up. John Lennon, the story goes that he heard Rock Lobster and he'd been out of music for years and was like, I'm not going to make any new stuff. And he heard Rock Lobster and it was such a new sound for him that it jarred something in him where he thought, I still love music so much, I want to make new stuff. And he credits Rock Lobster to getting him back into producing music.
Yeah.
So isn't that funny how a song like that could stir a great Beatle out of retirement?
Yeah. Yeah.
So new wave is powerful.
Another place I just thought of that really kind of progressed new wave was Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
They had some bands on that were not radio played. They would put them on and man, they would have great performance of a song or two, and then all of a sudden, 5-6 weeks later, they're up in the charts.
It blows them
United
up.
States. Yeah. So that was another key, I think, is places like Saturday Night Live that put these bands on.
So the 80s, and I loved Saturday Night Live for that. You had MTV, you had all of these places that were kind of making it more accessible to people.
I think they were those kinds of things were the internet of today. Like we have YouTube, etc., where people can really explode and become, without a record company, without a record deal. I think that was kind of like the same situation back then, was these bands getting on TV and kind of getting out to a wide audience.
Because some of these bands had a rough go getting started.
Yeah.
Like, I'm always reminded of Devo. So their music wasn't really accepted at first, and people were kind of like, I don't know about this new sound that's coming out.
Right.
To the point where they would book gigs as a cover band. They would get on and be like, all right, you guys ready for some Jackson Browne? And then they would just switch to their stuff and like surprise people. And they would get stuff thrown at them and booed off the stage. But just to get gigs, they had to pretend to be cover bands to just get
airplay of some sort. Yeah.
Which said something about it. It took a minute. Like, it wasn't just a natural fit for people with that music.
Yeah.
So we've hit 3, 4, and 5.
Oh yeah.
Let's go
now.
We're getting to the top 2.
Top 2, Depeche Mode.
So maybe 2 for you with Depeche Mode?
2 Depeche Mode.
Okay.
I pretty much love their catalog from start to finish. Again, unbelievable performers. David is just like the preeminent entertainer. I've seen stuff from just the last year where he's in his I think he's 65, and he's performing like he's a kid.
Which is crazy to see.
Oh my gosh! And his voice has stayed with him. A lot of us get older and our voices disappear, but he still has a great voice. I think Andy's lost his voice a little bit. Andy's struggling with some of the high notes, and a lot of his were the ballads. A lot of songs he was key on were the ballads, and I think they've lost something live. But David's really kept it.
Yeah. And you see bands tend to compensate for that. Like, we saw New Order when they came into town. What was it? For Kilby, like the last block party. And definitely you could see like the guitars being tuned up a little bit to drown out the vocals.
Right.
They had some guest artists singing with them to kind of help carry some of the songs.
Yeah, part of aging, you're going to lose those vocal cords. It is what it is.
But the fact that they're 80s, 70s, like still going
it's
strong.
Pretty amazing. So, but definitely Depeche Mode, top to bottom. I like I was mentioning earlier, I do think their later stuff gets better and better. What my favorite song right now of theirs is Ghost. It's just an amazing song, and I believe that's off their latest album. So, I still love some of their early stuff. People Are People. I mean, that's a fantastic song, right? But I think the newer stuff has more meaning to it. It's a little more rich. Obviously, more production goes into it, so it has a better sound, top to bottom.
For you, for Depeche Mode. So, say you're somebody that's just getting into Depeche Mode. Like, an album for you. Like, for me, I feel like I'm drawn to Violator.
So I would actually direct them to 101.
Would you?
Yeah. Okay. It's an expensive album. Which
I was going to say, that's the most expensive one, right? Yeah. That's probably.
But it gives you a kind of a flash of all of their stuff up to that point. So I do think 101 is the best introduction for people. And then they can kind of go backwards, forwards from there.
Yeah. So I guess going back, because I love this thought of like, what's that album too that captures it? So going back a little bit to like In Excess, I feel like Kick was maybe the like
Kick or Listen Like Thieves.
Those two were kind of the if you're gonna go start there and see what happens. Yeah.
And I was watching a documentary the other night about them, and it's really fascinating how they started one way, very ska sounding band. And then kind of just got that radio play. They had a couple really good singles that kind of got big radio play, not only in Australia, but here in the United States. And then they kind of focused, okay, let's make music for, this kind of, listening. And I think that they definitely changed their style quite a bit in their years. But it's sad that they were, not here as long as we would have liked them to be because of Michael passing. But I tell you, I think they had some great albums. But I think Listen Like Thieves maybe is my favorite.
That for you.
Yeah.
So moving to number 2, we had Depeche Mode.
Yeah.
We're getting into number 1 here in a second. And this is one I'm excited because I'm just going to admit up front, you're going to be able to share some things with me and teach me. So for you, number 1, what's your number 1?
Bauhaus for sure.
Okay. So tell me, I mean, I'm going to like very limited knowledge. Tell me about what makes Bauhaus number 1 for you.
For me, Bauhaus is the introduction to the world of goth music. Okay. I think that Peter Murphy basically brought goth music to the world. I mean, it did exist before them, but they really brought it to the masses. So their first single was Bela Lugosi's Dead. That's the first thing they released. Oh my God. I mean, that 9-minute song is pure gold. Just an amazing song. And if you're into that goth culture, it's the anthem for goth music.
Yeah.
So how do you go wrong?
And do you feel like that kind of played in like when you loved new wave? Did it start with Bauhaus? Did it like
No, honestly, I didn't hit Bauhaus till later. I didn't hear Bela Lugosi's Dead probably until 84, and that was the end of their career. Yeah. They were a very short-lived band as well. I think they were from 79, 80 to 84.
Yeah.
Put out one album a year, very quick, and then kind of disappeared because of infighting. But yeah, that when I did hear them for the first time, I was like, oh, dang, this is cool stuff.
It was like we talked about that repeat band where you hear a song and you're like, I got to listen to that again.
And that was a 9-minute song that you put on repeat.
Yeah, you're already an hour in by the time you're done repeating that.
And I was thinking about this other night because you and I had talked in the store, and it's like trying to kind of go back in time and remember, what is it about them? But pretty sure I heard them at a club downtown Salt Lake City. And that's the first time I heard it. And it was just one of those nights where, it was like a cool night. Yeah. And, the strobe lights going and the weird fog machine and all that. And then hearing this 9-minute song. It's like, dang, that is just super cool. The bass line on that. I mean, oh my gosh.
And that was the first time you'd heard it, was at the club that night?
Yeah. And then from there, I was like, who is this Bauhaus? And so then I had some friends that figured they knew, oh yeah, I've got 3 of their albums. Okay, I got to hear these then. So that's kind of when I started picking up on their other stuff.
Was that a band you ever saw live?
No.
Okay.
No.
Did they do much live performing, or was that one of those
they did.
XTC style bands that just didn't?
No, they did. And they did come to the United States, but by the time I had really found them, which would have been 85, 86,
that's true.
They were done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, unfortunately never saw. Now, I did see them twice on the internet, full concerts. Okay. One at the Cruel World Festival in 22, I believe it was. Mm-hmm. And then they did that, the one at, what's the big one in California?
Coachella?
Coachella, thank you. They did a Coachella concert where he performed Upside Down. He did Bela Lugosi's Dead Upside Down.
So you at least got
oh my gosh. Yeah. And see, we go back to the performer. Peter Murphy, unbelievable. The performer in him is just unmatched. Yeah. Guy is amazing. And again, older like myself at this point. He's probably in his late 50s, early 60s, and performing like a kid still. Still has that edge to him.
Yeah. Some people just have that rock star edge.
Yeah, right? He has that rock star edge to him. Came out in that 22 concert just looking like cool dude. Yeah. Like, wow, this guy's cool. Had the clothes still. They were more up to date, but dark, very goth looking. And then just the fact that he can hold those notes, he can really bring the crowd in. Just amazing performer. Yeah.
And with new wave, kind of probably mid to late 80s, that we're starting to get to the tail end of some of those bands.
Yeah,
too.
I would say, yeah. And a lot of the bands were one-hit wonders or, 5 or 6.
And that was the interesting thing, right? Like you had these 1 or 2 songs from the band that would just jump out and grab people. And then the rest of it just didn't resonate. What do you think caused that?
I think a lot of the bands, this is something that probably happens with all generations of music, but I noticed it really in the 80s, lots of infighting and then forming other bands.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about New Order and Love and Rock, or excuse me, New Order and Joy Division. Lots of infighting would happen. Bands would split pretty quickly and form other groups. And you go back and you can kind of play that 6 degrees of separation. But okay, how does Depeche Mode relate to Yaz? Well, one of their members of Yaz, you know, became Depeche Mode. So there's a lot of those kind of ties in new wave music, I think.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that define it too, we kind of hinted at this, but it's the movies of the 80s.
Oh, definitely.
And before we had our chat, before I kind of dove a little bit and picked Brooke's brain, like for me, when I see an 80s movie, the first thing that it invokes is that soundtrack.
Right.
And there were so many movies back then that just had incredible soundtracks.
Well,
to some
John
of these bands.
Hughes, who made a lot of those movies, was very big into his soundtracks. And I agree that some of, like Pretty in Pink soundtrack, amazing. It's one of my first records I actually bought. And it's an amazing record.
And a great thing for those soundtracks too, the price points are lower.
Yeah.
And you get some of these bands where you just can't find their songs.
Right.
The albums.
Well, and you know, back then streaming music wasn't a thing. Now, if I want to listen to 3 songs from XYZ band, I just do that really quick. I don't have to buy the whole thing. Back then, that was difficult.
Yeah.
And so I think you're right that those key albums, I can get Echo and the Bunnymen on this. I can get, you know, I can get all kinds of different music genres on this one album. But I think new wave was big with John Hughes, and I think that was a lot of that that association you're talking about.
And I think bands back then, they really wanted these songs to take off, and they realized that some of these movies were coming out and propelling these bands from obscurity to suddenly that song's played so much that it's on the top 40 now because of that movie.
Yeah, definitely.
I felt like the new wave artists really, they wanted their songs in these movies.
Yeah. No, I don't think new wave actually was against the culture in terms of, we don't want anything to do with this or that. They wanted to make money. It was that was a big thing. Let's do this.
Popular.
If we can do our music and make money at the same time, fantastic. It's great for everybody. So I think they did really kind of embrace that and went with the flow on that.
And it's funny too, because John Hughes movies, that was another weakness to me. Like not watching movies in the 80s. Like I missed a whole list of movies that people are like, you haven't seen 16 Candles?
Right.
Pretty in Pink? Like
what?
And Brooke, when we started dating, she was like, basically was so distraught. She made me write down all of the movies that I hadn't seen. And we had just a John Hughes marathon. And I'm like, these are fantastic. Like the soundtracks, the movies. And so it's changed, I feel like, 80s music for me, having had now watched those movies. And there's just a tie-in now when I hear a song. It's like, oh, I remember that movie.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I mean, there's a litany of music.
And I feel like some stars may not have gotten propelled as fast and as far as they did if they didn't have that hit.
Definitely.
Like, obviously falling out a little bit of our genre we're talking about, but like Huey Lewis with The Power of Love. Like, just Back to the Future.
When you think about it, it was the viral moment for them.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't have the internet. They didn't have these viral moments that could happen, but those movies could be the viral moment.
It almost opened up a new genre or a new group of people that may not have been influenced to that music.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. You could have people in middle America never heard of Echo and the Bunnymen, and then they watch Pretty in Pink. Who does that Dancing Horses song? That is the best song. And then all of a sudden you have a new Echo and the Bunnymen fan.
So I feel like the movies of the 80s may be one of the pivotal things that shaped the movements.
Absolutely.
And then what do you think? Because we're starting to get to we've talked about your top 5.
Yeah.
We're starting to get to the end of the 80s.
Yep.
Great music, a powerful movement. What do you feel like was that thing that stopped it? What was it that about culture, about the music that maybe lended to?
I think that...
Did it change for you? Like,
It did, but I mean, also the world changed for me when I go to college. Still definitely into, more of the alternative music during college. Came out of college in a very big recession in 91, 92.
Yeah.
And I think that moment kind of changed music in a way. There was less optimism about things. I think there was a more pessimistic view, which
maybe
I
changing
think,
lyrics and
and I think that's where the grunge sound kind of really started to get traction. Was more of this like, what's going on, right? The garage sound. So I think that was probably the end of that whole genre of music.
Which is interesting because I actually just stirred something in my mind of like the 80s being this like era of optimism.
Right.
And it reflected in the music with that pop, that positive, and maybe like the culture maybe determines what people are really gravitating.
No, I think it does. And, it's interesting. The 80s, on the one hand, were very positive. On the other hand, I remember being a kid and hiding under desks because of the nuclear. I don't know. They would have, instead of earthquake awareness, we would have nuclear awareness, and we would somehow be survivors if we hid under our desk and put our heads between our legs. I mean, we had that kind of thing hanging over our heads. But also, I think when Reagan came in, there was more optimism for the whole country, and I think the late 80s, especially, I think it really became a big thing.
And probably to understand music, you have to understand the culture of what was happening. Like even going back further, you have like, I always hear the 50s music and you picture this like slightly repressed time, but music was this outlet suddenly that you're able to express.
And a celebration because of wars ending. World War II had ended. Korea had basically ended at that point. 52, 53. And I think you're right. I think it was more optimism, people moving out to the suburbs, getting things that they'd never had before. So I think there was an optimism. And you get the counterculture type thing happen in the 60s and 70s. I was
going to say the Vietnam War shaping anti-war.
Absolutely. I mean, you want to talk about Vietnam War, I always go to those protest songs, and Send Her Son, and et cetera, et cetera. And it's like definitely the culture does kind of steer popular music. Now, there's always music out there that is going to be against the culture or maybe ignores the culture, but popular culture, popular music is all going to follow together.
Which I just remember back when we started, and I hope that guy who probably left the podcast because music after 72 was garbage, right?
Right.
If you're still with us, I hope that maybe this has shaped a little bit more optimism for music after. But we talk about two things like what's going on in your life that's shaping things. And so for me too, getting a car at 16 was kind of a defining thing.
Right.
So for me, having my own vehicle, I controlled the music.
Right.
My dad didn't get to put the Beach Boys and Simon and Garfunkel on every road trip anymore. Suddenly I got to control what I listened to.
And you dump all that money that you made at the grocery store that week to the new cassette player or new CD player.
Exactly. And then you listen to those things over and over and to the point where that album is now ingrained in your head.
Yes.
And I always tell people this in store is I think one thing we've lost nowadays is that idea that an album was created to listen start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes artists would be like, I want to invoke a feeling with this first song. Then I want to take you on a journey through whatever they're trying to have you experience.
And with vinyl, you have to get up and flip sides. It keeps you engaged with the whole thing. Whereas you push a CD, first of all, CDs don't sound great to me. Compressed, doesn't sound good. But you also can let that thing run for an hour. And then by the second half, you're like zoned out. You're not even there.
So maybe that song 6 on what would be the second side was actually meant to be a more powerful song of like, you flip the record and this is the start now with that next listening experience.
100%.
Which would be interesting to go look at albums and see if that first song on side B, like maybe was more powerful.
Well, and I think some groups definitely made it that way. Pink Floyd comes to mind. I mean, going back to the 70s more. But I love Pink Floyd and some of the Led Zeppelin, etc. But Pink Floyd definitely made albums like Stories, obviously The Wall, but Dark Side of the Moon, very much a story from top to bottom. And when you flip the record, I do think that they had that in mind.
It was that intentional, here's a moment to take a minute. And now we're going to start you on side 2 with finishing up this. You do get sometimes a bad rap with the B-sides. I feel like there was a little bit to that. Like you're trying to hook people that first side.
Right.
If you had a great band, side B could be very compelling.
Exactly.
As the first. So
exactly.
So with that, and this is one thing I wanted to chat with you about too. So having that car, having that thing that gave me independence shaped my music. Suddenly I had control of what I listened to.
Right.
I would listen to things more often because I had that ability.
Yeah.
So this car was hugely influential.
Oh, yeah.
So do you feel like for you, there were certain years that shaped it? Like, I feel like we have these moments in life. Getting married for me shaped musically for me. Suddenly I have this other human that is like, you've never listened to this band. And they're like, well, let's go put it on right now.
I didn't get that because my wife's actually, as I mentioned earlier, she's really not into music that much.
That wasn't as a...
No, and it's been actually, we've been married, what, 30, coming up on 34 years now. So it's been one of the frustrations in my life that I can't get my wife to listen to music.
Do you feel like you've shaped it a little bit for her though?
No. So I listen to Spotify a lot. That's what I listen to in the car. Yeah. And I'll look and I'm like, why is Ed Sheeran on here? It's my wife at home listening, but she has like 3 different people she listens to, and that's all she ever listens to.
Yeah.
Ed Sheeran's been popping up on my Spotify for 6, 7, 8 years now. Yeah. And it's like, don't you listen to anything else?
But she's kind of found something that appeals.
Those are Ed Sheeran. So that's cool. He's cool. That's all good. But that's frustrating. But I would say age 16, like you were saying, that would have been 86 for me, because I did get my driver's license. As a side note, I did have my first accident about 5 minutes after getting my license.
Oh no. Was it a song that maybe got you too pumped up?
No, the song was turned down because Dad wouldn't let the songs. He didn't want the radio because he wanted to tell me how to do everything. But we were going out to my mom's work out of the airport to show her, hey, Mom, I got my license. And we came up on an intersection and downhill, learned on a stick, was fairly competent, but coming a little fast. I pushed the clutch in and then hit the brake. Oh, no. Going a little too quick. Yeah. Just bumped the guy in front of me.
Yeah.
No damage whatsoever. Dad gets out pointing at me. New driver. Oh my gosh. Embarrassment, right? But yeah, I think that things like that definitely shape, big moments in life shape what you're listening to and also how you feel.
Did that change driving for you? Because like having that happen at such an early...
I'm still one of those guys that I got close to your house today and I turned the radio down because
you're like, I need to
getting close. I got to focus where I'm going.
Yeah.
No, I think that, basically just the freedom part of that. I started listening to probably less aggressive music at that point. Age 15, 16, I was listening to a lot of punk music, Dead Kennedys, things like that. I think I did change a little bit after getting the responsibility of driving. I think I did start listening to calmer things, if you will.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So looking back, and this is always something I feel like is fascinating, is do you remember that first album that you purchased? Like, is there an album that jumps out that this was the
There's
first
a couple, and I honestly can't keep it straight in my mind. I was age 10 or 11, Christmas, I got my first record player.
Okay.
And it was a really cool one. It was from Radio Shack.
Yeah.
Man, I missed that story.
R.I.P. Radio Shack.
Yeah, I know. So it was record player, dual cassettes, and a tuner, radio tuner. Yeah. So I could record things. But I didn't have any, obviously any albums up to that point. Yeah. Only albums in the house were my parents' country music stuff. Yeah. And I vaguely remember asking for Asia. Ooh. I'm pretty sure if my memory serves, Asia was my very first album. And I don't remember which one it was, but it was the one with the dragon on the film.
Yeah. So this is funny.
Heat of the Moment.
Yes. So this was like my third album I had was actually Asia too.
Okay.
And I can still, whenever Heat of the Moment comes on, it just instantly takes me back to dropping the needle and playing that album.
Yep. Michael Jackson, Thriller was a big one when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Xanadu.
Okay.
Yeah, Olivia Newton-John. Yeah,
that had some good songs.
Those were some of the first couple 3 albums that I had. Yeah.
Which if you could change it, if you could go back in time, what would be your you need to get this album as your first album for just that?
Well, see, that would have been 81.
Yeah.
80, 81. It would have probably been Bauhaus.
If you would have known
maybe one of U2's first, because I think they released their very first one in 79, 80.
Sometimes I forget that U2 went back that far.
Yeah. So I think it would have been more in that. But I mean, 10, 11-year-old kid, I mean, you're going to go to the stuff that's on the radio, right? Where else are you going to hear things? And I remember, Asia and Michael Jackson, these types of, groups being the big thing on the radio at that time.
Sometimes you can't start too strong. You need to build up to the good stuff. So, I love that. It's fun that we have that, like Asia. As soon as you said that, immediately I just started smiling. I was just like, at the moment.
That album's probably still very pristine. I still have it. I have a record set up in my main room, and I've got like a small section, maybe 8 inches wide, of the albums from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Frankie Goes to Hollywood, I remember, is in there.
Yeah.
There's some other random stuff in there. Quiet Riot.
Oh yeah. Mental Health, maybe.
Yeah. Def Leppard. Paranoia.
Second album for me.
Okay. So wow, look at this. So those are definitely still there in the collection.
First one though, definitely a starter album. It was Neil Diamond.
Oh yes.
Hot August Night. And it was because there was a movie came out called Saving Silverman.
Okay.
And in it they kidnapped Neil Diamond.
Okay.
So it was like very fresh on my mind.
Okay.
And I remember seeing that album that they had talked about in the movie.
Is this the movie with Sarah Silverman?
I don't think it's with Sarah.
Okay.
It's probably
I'm thinking of another one.
Yeah. But it's funny how then tying back that movie shaped that first record that I had bought. Yeah. Because I had seen it on a movie.
Yeah.
So
and I would say that my first couple years in music, I mean, what are we gonna say about that? It's like it's just the things that we think we like.
Yeah. You're trying new things, you're experimenting, and that's the beauty of music.
I think by age 13, 14 is when I really started, okay, this is the kind of music I actually like. And, but I would listen to, just like today, I would listen to all kinds of things.
Yeah.
I remember really vividly listening to Mariah Carey for the first time when she was just barely coming out. And a couple of my friends just being, oh my gosh, have you heard her? An amazing voice, and everything. So I was listening to even stuff like that back then. But I would say, my real love was away from that and more into the punk music, the goth music, the new wave, things like that.
Yeah.
So,
and a beautiful thing that I learned more about. So when it came to your top 5, let's count them down for people. So coming in at number 5, we had
In Excess.
In Excess.
Yeah.
Coming in at number 4
was, I can't remember. Tell me, Dave.
I want to say it was, did we do Duran Duran?
No, we didn't do Duran Duran.
That was not.
Was it New Order / Joy Division?
I think so, because we had Cure.
Then we had the Cure
Depeche
3,
Mode,
and then we had
Bauhaus.
Depeche Mode, and then Bauhaus.
So in the comments, this will be kind of fun, because this is what's the beauty of music. You have songs, you have bands that appeal to you. You're probably going to have a different top 5 from the 80s, especially with New Wave.
Oh, for sure.
In the comments, though, tell us your top 5. If you had to rank them yourself with your experience, your love, the bands that jump out to you, down below, what are the top 5 bands for you that you would rank?
And I also want to hear in the comments, anybody know who Bauhaus is?
Yeah.
I'm sure there are a few people that do, but.
And our homework assignment is, if you haven't deep dived, let's go give them a listen. And we want you down below to let us know what you think.
And I have to tell you, Bauhaus is not just goth. So they came out real strong with their first single being Bela Lugosi's Dead.
Yeah.
A lot of their stuff is very dark, but also some of their stuff, you can kind of qualify it as surf punk.
Okay.
They broke when Peter Murphy left the band, they became Love and Rockets.
Yeah.
There's a very Love and Rockets type sound to some of their later stuff, but a lot of surf punk type-esque things. They did a cover of Telegram Sam. Telegram Sam is like something you'd hear down on Venice Beach or something. Yeah, so definitely not like a band that you're like, oh, it's all going to be dark from start to finish. And their albums are all very different. One album will be very dark. Another album will be more light and produced a little bit differently. So definitely a band to kind of like explore.
You feel like you start at the beginning of the discography to get a feel for how they start and move towards the end? Would you feel like that's how you would experience them?
Honestly, so this goes counter to listening to things on vinyl, but I would go to Spotify or something similar, and I would listen to like the best of. Like people like, oh, I like, this. They have a live album that they did called Gothic. Gothic would be a great place to start.
Yeah.
Because that's going to give you kind of a wide range of things. They do a couple covers on there. It gives you a good idea who Bauhaus really is.
I like it. Okay, so your job is to see what you think, let us know, and I think you're going to have a pretty awesome experience.
And if you like them, go listen to Peter Murphy. Personally, I think he's super underrated.
Yeah.
His solo stuff was amazing. I listened to him almost as much as I listened to Bauhaus.
Yeah.
And a lot of the compilations, you'll hear both things together. But he was fantastic as an individual.
Love that.
So,
hey, I got homework ahead of us now. So, and then as happens at the end of the 80s, that beautiful synth music coming in got replaced with pounding guitar riffs. It became kind of what we know as rock, heavy metal, and then glam rock too, really kind of started to fill in the gaps at the end. But there was a point from like 77 to like 86. There was just a special time about that music during that time.
Definitely.
So give it a check out. Tell us what you think, you guys. As we do with every end of the podcast, we like to get a little deep.
Okay.
For us, our go-to question is, if you went back in time to that teenage self, what advice would you give yourself? And it doesn't necessarily even have to be musically, but this is a chance for you to go back to your young 15-year-old self. What would you tell yourself?
Fairly easy.
Okay.
Take more chances. So I didn't take a lot of chances in life. I was very much like my dad. My dad worked for the same company for 22 years. I ended up working for the same company for 26 years. It hurts you financially because the more you change jobs, the more you're going to make. It's a proven fact. I got to the point where I was so bored. I could do my job in my sleep. I just wasn't pushing myself. And I look back and go, man, I wasted how many years? I could have been experiencing all kinds of other things.
Yeah.
So when I left that job, 4 or 5 years ago, it's like, okay, now what do I do? My wife was not ready to let me retire at that point. And so I went and became a dog trainer. Became a master dog trainer for 2.5, 3 years.
Which I love some of the later life career changes that you have that.
So who knows? Maybe I would have found that much earlier in life and done something even greater with it.
And one of the things I love that you told me too is you had a certain occupation with cars.
Oh yeah, it wasn't an occupation, but it was a side thing.
Yeah, tell people about that real quick. Of like,
so. Well, I'll tell kind of the story I told you in the store.
Yeah.
So in high school, I was art student, very big into art, still am today. And I drew a picture. It was a watercolor / airbrush of a Porsche 911 Turbo. So this would have been 87, 88.
Which for a lot of people, when you think of fast cars, that's one that comes to mind of like that iconic.
Well, that was iconic.
Car.
It was that and the Lamborghini Countach, I believe, at the time. Those were the two cars that everybody wanted. And I'm like, man, this thing is so cool. And I told myself when I graduated from high school, okay, I need to sit down and make a list. I'm not a list person per se, but I'm like, I got to sit down and make a list so that I can kind of move my life forward. I just met my wife. I didn't know she was going to become my wife, but I just met her. So I sat down and made a list of things I had to do before I was 30 years old.
Yeah.
Build a house, get married, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it was just some fairly easy things to obtain.
Yeah.
The one that was on there that I thought,
a stretch goal,
probably not going to happen, but we'll see, was to buy a Porsche. So 29 and a half years old, I decided, it's the last thing on the list I haven't done. I'm going to do it.
Out of time till you're 30. Yeah.
So I went out, I found a Porsche 911 that was, gosh, at the time it would have been 20 years old, something like that, and said, I'm going to do this. So I found a guy in West Jordan who was rebuilding these old Porsches. And so we took the car, we updated it with some new body work to make it look a little bit more modern, if you will. The bumpers are better,
give it a little body kit.
Exactly. High mileage. It had 160,000 miles at the time.
Wow.
So me being,
Was this car like a daily driver for somebody? Probably.
It
Wasn't
was,
necessarily a race car.
and actually, I found out later what had happened was the lady had been doing what we call autocrossing, basically parking lot racing, and she ran into a curb. It put a small crease in the one side of the door jamb, not the door itself, but the door jamb, and that's why she had to get rid of it and get a new one.
Yeah.
And so this guy got this car fairly inexpensive. I got it fairly inexpensive. Had him and we had a Porsche mechanic from France that was working for him at the time. I had him rebuild the engine and transmission. And then we basically redid the car. So it looked like a brand new car when I was done with it. Ended up driving it for about a year, got really involved with the local Porsche club, and found on one of these little outings something called autocross. Lady had done. I found this all out later, but I was like, dang, this looks fun.
Yeah.
So basically,
tell people what autocross is.
Autocross is, think of a time trial in a parking lot.
Okay.
So you lay out cones, you'll make a course,
Yeah.
and sometimes they're very technical, sometimes they're a little bit faster, depends on the size of the parking lot. Yeah. And then it's timed, and then the best time wins, right? So it's an introduction to racing. So I'm like, I got to do this. So as everybody does, I go out there just on street tires, and I get into it. Man, this is kind of fun.
Yeah. What was that first time like? Were you nervous?
Oh, I was very nervous because first of all, it's this car that I just spent a big chunk of money on, and my wife's looking at me going, "You're doing what? You're racing in a parking lot? You're an idiot."
And you're still remembering that first moment when you bumped into
another car.
Yeah, you got
and there's light poles here and there.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I do 4 or 5 races, and I actually finished fairly high in the standings, and I only completed maybe half of the seasons. Yeah. Hey, I'm okay at this, right? Yeah. So somebody approached me and said, you really need to come out and do this for the whole year. Think about getting some tires, some better tires, et cetera. So that just kind of gave me some things to think about. So I started working on the car myself. So I did all the maintenance on the car myself. I started playing with suspension. I put new suspension in the car. I tore everything out of the car. So everything came out, air conditioners, everything, radio. I got the car to as light as possible and still be able to race it in the category. Ended up becoming the autocross master. So I ran the Intermountain Porsche Club's autocross program for about 4 years. And I won 5 championships here in the state of Utah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool to be able to like take something that I didn't even know existed and then just have it become my own.
Which is interesting, tying into that, like, take chances, right?
Exactly.
That was definitely
that was a risk, and kind of going outside of my introverted type of personality. I then became bored of parking lot racing and started hitting the track. And so at the time, we didn't have a racetrack here. I would travel down to like Las Vegas Motor Speedway and start doing what they call DE, so driver's education. Yeah. So basically learning how to drive a high performance machine at the limits. Yeah. It's one thing to drive fast on street in a parking lot. Yeah. It's completely different when you get out on a racetrack and you're driving that thing at to the 10/10 of what its capability is. And I became pretty adept at that, and so ended up actually becoming an instructor for the Porsche Club here. Became a Porsche North America instructor, and then they built the racetrack here. Larry Miller built the racetrack out in Tooele in '86, I believe it was. And I became an instructor for them for the first year that they were open. And then I would do a lot of instructing out there on the racetrack. A lot of people that would buy a new Porsche from Dave Strong or somebody like that, and then they really didn't know how to drive, because Porsches are different. A 911 with that engine in the back, it's a completely different animal. It's almost unintuitive to figure out how to drive one. So
somebody just going off the lot trying to navigate.
It's kind of the joke about the Mustang drivers that ball up their car. Porsche's the same thing. 911 drivers will ball up their car very easily. So I had a lot of fun experience doing that. So I was doing my own racing and then instructing, and then it all came to a fiery end. Not really fiery. One day I'm instructing from the passenger seat, and I'm like, dang, I'm getting like seasick.
Yeah.
And I never had that in my entire life.
Yeah.
And then each event after that, it got worse and worse to the point where one guy, we were in his Lotus, and I'm like, you gotta take me out. Yeah, get over in the pit lane now.
Yeah.
And I basically crawled out of the car and couldn't walk. And I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Decided at that point, no more instructing from the passenger seat.
Yeah.
If I was going to be instructing, it would be in my car or their car, and I would be driving.
Yeah.
Which I did for a little while, but I still didn't feel right. And then about 6 months later, I'm out at the racetrack, and I start feeling the same seasickness when I'm driving at high speeds.
Yeah.
And out at Larry Miller Motorsports, you would hit that front straightaway around 160, 170 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And then it would be a left-hand turn about 90 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And I would literally feel like my brain disconnected from my body and went straight out to the west as I'm turning. And I mean, I first lap on that year, I said, nope, I'm done. I can't even do this anymore. And I brought the car back in and got out of the car, and I've never been back in the car. So what it turned out to be is I had a wreck when I was 5 years old. And it was a piece of rebar hit me square in the head when I was sledding, and it caused headaches every day, sinus issues, all kinds of other things. But those headaches were present until I was 40 years old.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, and now this is all in retrospect, I can kind of piece this together. Headaches went away, and I wasn't getting headaches, but now I was getting these seasick type things.
Developed into a new.
Yes. So they thought I had a brain tumor. We did all kinds of tests. 3 months later, finally found a neurologist that had figured it out. And what it was is my migraines had moved. And I guess this is fairly common, actually. My migraines had moved from headache to vertigo. So now I have what's referred to as migraine vertigo.
Wow.
So heavy drugs to keep me upright.
Yeah.
If I don't have those drugs, I'm sideways walking. Unfortunately, there's no cure for it because it has to do with the headaches. It's not anything in my inner ear or anything like that. No. So luckily I can still drive. I can drive on the streets. That's not a problem. It's just at those high speeds, can't do it.
That's something.
Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of a bummer, but it was a fun 10-year run or so in the Porsches.
The interesting thing though is at age 29, you had this goal and you had this dream, right?
Yep.
And you took a risk. You're like, I'm going to do this thing that I wanted to do.
Exactly.
And you had, like, it's amazing that you had that 10-year run of like being at the top of what you wanted to do.
And honestly, if I hadn't had the vertigo, the medical issue, I was on the edge of, like, I wouldn't say hitting it big, but in our world, it was big. Getting to places like getting a ride at Le Mans, getting a ride at Daytona.
Yeah.
Those kinds of races are 3 to 12 to 24 hours long, and you'll have 3 racers. They share a car.
Yeah.
And I was actually in talks just before this with a couple local groups about, I just need to kind of get this done and get that done. And then eventually maybe I can have a seat in the car for being one of those driver's positions.
Yeah.
So I was on the verge of actually doing what is huge in that business.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would ever want to go professional with it, but I was
teetering on the edge.
I was on the edge of a big dream. So, but life throws you stuff sometimes, and who knows? Like my wife said, maybe I could have got killed if I, had done it much longer. I don't know.
It's hard to overthink.
Yeah.
Well, I love that. So
take more risks because, you only live once, as far as I know. I don't have any memory of being here before, so I'm assuming it's just once.
Yeah.
So.
I'm on my fourth.
You're your fourth.
Yeah.
Don't linger. Yeah. Just like go into new. Like your thing here. Like this is, you took a risk and it's a new thing, and it's like, oh, and look how exciting, it's turned out and everything. So,
and I never would have predicted, like even in high school or college, like sometimes life takes you on a journey, and it really is about the ride and enjoying the moments.
Exactly.
And I feel like that I'm going to make that my thing that I'm thinking right now of like my advice to my 15-year-old self is sometimes we set these goals of like, I'm not going to be happy till I graduate high school. I'm not going to be happy till I'm out of college and started my career.
Right.
Or when you're in your career, you're like, I can't wait to retire and live the retired life.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that I've learned is it's about the ride. It's about those moments, that the in-betweens. It's about enjoying just the small things.
And it sounds easy from somebody that just retired at age 55, but don't tie yourself up into the money.
Yeah.
One thing I kind of regret from my whole lifetime is not pursuing more art. I was headed to college on an art scholarship and decided not to do that. And it's one of those things where now that's what I'm doing more in retired life is just, if I want to do a piece of art, I just go do a piece of art.
Just awesome.
Probably will never sell it, but there's not that pressure to sell it.
Yeah.
When you're younger, you feel like, if I'm going to do this, I need to make money at it. But do those things that you want to do. Yeah. If you make money at it, great. If you don't,
not, you've done something that you love.
Exactly.
So. Yeah. Well, thank you, Paul. It's been so fun chatting with you. We could do episode 3 and 4 after this.
There you go.
So
we'll do it.
You guys, it's been Daybreak After Dark. We're talking 80s. We're talking new wave. And we're talking taking risks and enjoying the moments. You guys, thanks for joining us. It's been a pleasure. We'll see you next time.